Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. I'm Dr. Asmidah Ahmad from the Faculty of Shariah and Law, University Science Islam Malaysia. My presentation today addresses a critical gap in our family justice systems, the difference between merely hearing children and ensuring their meaningful participation in decisions that affect their lives. The title, Beyond Being Heard, deliberately moves us past tokenistic listening. Meaningful child participation in custody disputes is essential for promoting children's rights and ensuring their voices are genuinely heard throughout the legal process. But here's the reality. In many jurisdictions, including Malaysia, we are still struggling to translate the principle of listening into authentic participation. Over the next 10 minutes, we'll examine what real participation looks like, compare approaches across Malaysia and New Zealand, and identify practical solutions for our family courts. Nearly 30 years ago, Malaysia ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and Article 12 of that convention couldn't be clearer. It provides that every child capable of forming views has the right to express those views freely in all matters affecting them, including judicial proceedings. Moreover, their views must be given due weight according to their age and maturity. This is not a suggestion, it is a binding international commitment. Yet, after almost 3 decades, we face a troubling and persistent gap between promise and reality. Article 12 remains largely on paper, reduced to a discretionary act rather than an enforceable right. We see inconsistent practices across courts, no standardized protocols for implementation, and a systemic failure to move beyond symbolic gestures. The law has changed, but our legal culture hasn't. To diagnose the problems more precisely, we can turn to Roger Hart's ladder of participation. In this framework, it reveals that most Malaysian custody cases hover dangerously near the bottom rungs. We see tokenism where children are asked questions, but their views carry no discernible weight. We see decoration where children's voices appear in welfare reports but aren't really considered in decisions. And we see manipulation where adults selectively use children's words to justify predetermined outcomes. Real participation means climbing towards the top rungs where children are genuinely consulted and informed, where they share decision making with adults, and where they can even initiate actions themselves. We are not there yet. This failure to climb matters profoundly, and the research makes this unmistakably clear. Meaningful participation reduces psychological trauma by restoring children's sense of agency during one of the most destabilizing experiences of their lives. It strengthens family ties post separation because children who feel respected are more likely to maintain healthy relationships with both parents. It also enhances the quality of judicial decisions because children provide crucial information that adults simply can't know. And it improves long term compliance and well being because children are more likely to accept arrangements they help shape. Beyond all these practical benefits, participation fulfills children's fundamental need for respect and recognizes them as human beings with inherent dignity. Our legal framework on the surface appears to support the vision. Both civil and Sharia courts consistently declare the welfare of the child as the paramount consideration. The Law Reform Marriage and Divorce Act 1976 and various Islamic family law enactments and act explicitly instruct judges to consider the wishes of the child if they are of an age to express independent opinions. But here's the critical flaw. These provisions are entirely discretionary. It seems to be discretionary. Okay? The law gives permission but imposes no obligation. There is no guidance on how to elicit children's views, no clear timeline for when to involve them, no standards for what constitutes meaningful participation or consultation, and no requirement that their views substantively influence the final decision. The barriers to genuine participation are deeply systemic and interconnected. We see tokenistic participation where views are solicited but thereafter systematically ignored. Consultation happens too late after decisions are effectively already made, and many judges remain resistant, preferring to protect children from what they view as the burden of participation. Furthermore, our welfare officers are dedicated but catastrophically overburdened, lacking specialized training in child sensitive communication. There is also no system of independent representation in Malaysian courts. Children receive no feedback about what happened to their views or how decisions were reached, and we have failed to create safe, child friendly environments where children can express themselves without any fear or intimidation. Landis model offers a practical evidence based framework from the latest hard experimenting before this to this model of participation. Okay, let's see what can we adopt from Landis model. In this landscape, it demands four essential elements that must work together. First is space. We must create physically and psychologically safe child-friendly environments for expression to the child. And second, voice, where we must provide diverse communication methods, not just intimidating, not just by relying into intimidating long interviews with the judges, but maybe with some activities, drawing, writing, working with trained play therapists for the children to express themselves authentically. And third one is audience. We must guarantee that children's views reach the actual decision maker, not just disappear into welfare reports that may never be fully considered. And the last one is influence. We must ensure that children's views significantly inform the outcome. This model shifts participation from a procedural box ticking exercise to a substantive right that changes how justice is done. Let's move to the jurisdiction of New Zealand. Okay, what they have is that in New Zealand's Care of Children Act 2004, it shows us that this transformation is achievable. Their system mandates several key steps before any court hearing. The first one is PTS, whereby the parents must complete a 4-hour parenting through separation course. Then they must attend family dispute resolution, a professional mediation process where trained advocates bring children's view into discussion. Only if this fails do they then enter into adversarial court systems where child interviews are available with clear protocols when needed. The results speak for themselves. 60 to 70% of cases settle in mediation. Parents are demonstrably better informed about children's needs, and children's voices are integrated throughout the process. Contrast this with Malaysian jurisdiction, where we have no pre-court requirements, two PTS, no mandatory parent education, no professional child advocates, And while we have traditional suluh or mediation, children's meaningful participation remains largely absent. We send families straight into adversarial court proceedings and wonder thereafter why outcomes are poor. Closing this gap requires urgent, multi-pronged reform that addresses legal, institutional, and cultural transformation. Simultaneously, it must be done simultaneously. We need legal reforms that make participation an enforceable right, not a judicial discretion, with clear mandatory procedures and accountability. And we need comprehensive professional training for judges, lawyers, and welfare officers in child sensitive practice and developmentally appropriate communication. And we also need institutional transformation to create independent child advocacy services and expand welfare department capacity. And perhaps the most challenging part is we need a fundamental cultural shift from viewing children as passive subjects to be protected from involvement, from the participation, from the agency principle, to respecting them as right holders whose participation strengthens rather than burdens the justice system. Without all four elements, without all those four elements, we will simply recycle the same failures. Let me leave you with a clear path forward through five stages of evolution. From the stage one we are currently stand is passive input, where children's views are discretionary, solicited too late, and given no weight, to the stage two, which requires us to create genuine opportunities for children to express their views in safe spaces. In stage three, it demands us to ensure that those views actually reach decision makers. And in stage four, it insists us to give them or the views serious weights in our deliberations. And in stage 5, our ultimate goal is to make children as an active agency who participate meaningfully in shaping their own futures. We are still stuck. We are still stuck. We are still stuck. Tiga kali. We are still stuck at stage 1. The path is clear. The only question is whether we have the professional and political courage to climb the ladder. The law gives us permission, the research gives us evidence, the models give us pathways. Now, we need only the will to act. And with that, I end my presentation. Thank you for listening and Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shukran. Jazila.